Hey, hello to whoever is joining. I'm just setting up, getting prepared. You're going to want to stay tuned for this. This is like a day where the news just keeps getting worse. It just doesn't stop. It just doesn't stop. So, anyway, I'm just going to wait a few seconds while people get on. And Daniel, can you put it lower, the TV? Where is my water? All right. Oh, good. Okay. All right. All right. So if you've been watching the news at all over the last 24 hours, you know that in a very grotesque and macabre display, Hamas had a ceremony for 4 bodies of supposedly Israeli hostages that they were going to be returning, and as part of the ceasefire agreement. And the ceremony I'll get into later, but the bodies were presumably the of the Bibas family, Shiri Bibas, the mom, and the 2 kids, Kfir and Ariel. Kfir being the youngest hostage, taken at 9 months old, and Ariel was taken at 4. And then one of the oldest hostages, Oded Lifshitz, who was kidnapped with his wife. His wife was released in the first few weeks of the war back in October 2023, actually. So anyway, this was presumed, and but of course, Israel said that they were going to identify, and even the Bibas family was like, please do not eulogize our family until we know anything for sure, and they were very adamant about that. So we all so last night, during the course of the evening, they said that they had identified Oded Lifshitz, and they said that that he was, according to the forensic investigation, that he was murdered in captivity. They did not detail what that means. And then I think that was it. We went to, that's it, went to bed, woke up to the news that they have identified the bodies of Ariel and Kfir, but that the 4th body was a woman that was not Shiri Bibas and not any known Israeli hostage. Unknown body. They have no idea. It took a while. Now, of course, this is hours old now, this news. So Hamas ignored it for a while, and they put out a statement. They're saying, well, of course, we probably made a mistake because her body was so badly destroyed and mixed with others that were killed in an Israeli bombing. So now, they said, well, they'll have to figure it out. But the news got even worse. Just now, just about 10, 15 minutes ago, the IDF spokesman, the Israeli IDF spokesman, got up and said that they have completed the investigation and the forensic investigation into the murder of Ariel and Kfir. And I'm going to read to you what we heard him say on TV just now. Ariel and Kfir were brutally murdered in captivity in Gaza during the first weeks of the war by murderous terrorists. I'm not actually, I was on the wrong channel. So hold on, let me get actually his words, not somebody quoting his words. Okay. Contrary to Hamas's lies, Ariel and Kfir were not killed in an airstrike. Ariel and Kfir Bibas were murdered by terrorists in cold blood. The terrorists did not shoot at the young boys. They killed them with their bare hands. Afterwards, they committed horrific acts to cover up these atrocities. This assessment is based on both forensic findings from the identification process and intelligence that supports the findings. So He didn't state specifically. There are all sorts of news reports out there on the different possible ways. Not news reports, all sorts of verified reports about how possibly whether they were strangled or what. And there's no news on Shiri. So this presents a huge obstacle or huge decision for Israel, a challenge as to whether or not to continue with the ceasefire, since they say that Hamas violated it by sending the wrong body. Now, for all intents and purposes, it seems to be moving forward that there will be a release tomorrow of 6 living hostages, 6 living Israeli hostages tomorrow in the morning. And that would be the last remaining live hostages in the first phase. But don't know if this is going to go forward. I think Israel also might have stopped the aid that was going into Gaza after they found out that they had the wrong body. And now they have big decisions to make as to whether to go forward. Let me also go to the hostage families forum, see some of what they had to say about this. So they put out a press release saying, we are shaken to the core by the horrifying findings confirming the cruel and brutal murder of Ariel and Kfir Bibas, just innocent infants at the hands of Hamas. This barbaric act is yet another undeniable testament to the unfathomable brutality to those who continue to hold our loved ones captive. The very same hands that slaughtered Ariel and Kfir are the ones keeping our fathers, mothers, sons, and daughters in unimaginable conditions. The Bibas family and all of us standing with them have one message. Remember Ariel and Kfir. Let their memory be a call to action. The fight to bring every hostage home must not stop for a moment. This is a moment of moral clarity. The world must stand united in demanding their immediate return before it is too late. By the way, sorry, I don't have this ready on my computer, but these are the Bibas boys right there. Their aunt, who has been a very strong spokesperson, she's the sister of Yarden Bibas, Ofri. She has been saying, we've been waiting for confirmation. She said, my sweet nephews were kidnapped alive from their homes and they were murdered by a cruel terrorist organization. They didn't deserve that fate. Our painful journey of the last 16 months isn't over. October 7th is still ongoing for us. We are still waiting for Shiri and are extremely worried about her. Shiri, Ariel, and Kfir were kidnapped alive by a murderous terrorist organization. I didn't say Siri, so you can stop and carry on here. Okay. And it was the state of Israel's responsibility and commitment to return them alive. There can be no forgiveness for abandoning them on October 7th, and there can be no forgiveness for abandoning. Sorry, I missed something. No forgiveness for abandoning them in captivity. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu, we haven't even received an apology from you at this painful time for Ariel, for Kfir, and for Yarden, the husband who was returned. We are not seeking revenge now. We want Shiri. Their cruelty only stresses the immediate need to return Shiri to us. Save the lives of the living hostages and to bring back the fallen back for burial. And she talks to President Trump. She's apologizing for that she can't cry for them now. And she said, we're just waiting for your mom. And then she'll probably break down. Okay. Good morning, Laura. Thank you. Talene, was this family specifically chosen to be returned? And hello to New Jersey. This family should have been returned in the first phase back in November 2023. The first phase, not of this current, of the previous ceasefire that was just like 6 weeks after the war started. There was a ceasefire that went through and about 100 plus hostages were released. And this family should have been one of the first. And Hamas very early on, and I think it was in October, still within, it was October 7th was when they were kidnapped. And I think it was in the month of October, still like just a few weeks later, that they said that the family, that Shiri and the two boys were killed in an Israeli bombing. And because that's when Israel had started to bomb Gaza. And they said, so they put that out there right away. And Israel said, we have no proof of that. And Israel would not put it out officially that they were dead. So it was a mystery. And then when this first hostage release, it was supposed to be for children, elderly, children and moms that were kidnapped, of which there were quite a few, for elderly women and for people who had health issues. So they had these rounds of releases, and every time we were expecting that the Bibas family would be released, and they were not. So now the speculation that is rampant in Israel is that they were murdered, and they had to cover up, like they had to do something to the bodies to make it look like it was Israel's fault. Now, I had heard even back then that they were kidnapped by another group, not Hamas. And so Hamas didn't really have control over all the kidnappings that took place. There was also Islamic Jihad, another terror group that was doing it. And there were also civilians. And apparently there was yet another group. It was like the Mujahideen something or other that got them and had them. And so this was probably like a 1.5 year long cover up by Hamas that they were taken out by this other terror group, and Hamas always, of course, like putting out like in their they've been putting out in the last couple days that we respected the bodies of dead hostages. We held them in according to Islamic ritual, and they just tried to defend themselves. So that yes, this family should have been out. I mean, a baby, like a very young, a 9-month-old baby, should have been out last year, a 1.5 years ago. So the fact that they were only coming out now, and now not even the mom is out. So, I mean, as it was, yesterday was like this unofficial day of national mourning. Events were canceled. I mean, people took it really hard. Because I will tell you, I was just interviewed actually on CBN News yesterday, and I put the link on my Facebook page. You can see it. I actually put it on YouTube too, in the community channel, so you can get to it. But I was asked, Chris Mitchell asked me about like the what it means for Israel, like for Israelis, about the Bibas family. And so the family, because of the uncertainty surrounding them, and also because of the ages, and also their red heads, they became like this symbol, this national symbol. I mean, the color orange. Many people yesterday put out the Israeli flag, instead of in white and blue, in white and orange. And there were always orange balloons present, like at the hostage forums and protests. And they became the symbol of hope that despite all of the trauma and tragedy of October 7th, if the Bibas family is still alive, if they're still here, then it's all going to be okay. That's going to make it better. It's going to help us to move on. So there was, even though, I mean, it was almost obvious that this was not going to end well, but in any case, Israelis took it very hard. And then not only that, they woke up to even more insane news that it was not the mom, but some unidentified, probably Palestinian woman, Gazan woman, we don't even know. And then a few hours after that the forensic investigation said that the boys were not killed in a bombing. They were not killed by gunshots. They were murdered with somebody's bare hands. Oh, God. Raya, go in the other room. You don't need to hear this.
Good.
Yeah. Yeah, who wants, I don't want my kids to hear this. I don't want her to hear the next story either. Daniela says Americans are taking it hard. I can't stop crying. I know a lot of people are taking it really hard. I have a friend who also was like, she was like, as I was telling you about, that people were holding on to them as a symbol of hope, and she was, and I kept asking her, but don't you think like it's not going to end well? It's not going to be great news at the end. She's like, no, I'm just going to hope until the end. I'm just going to, and she was like absolutely crushed yesterday. So, anyway, so that's where the news is at right now over here in Israel. There's another thing, and this is also like unbelievable. So again, last night, all messages popping up, bus explosion in Bat Yam, which is near Tel Aviv. Okay. Oh, another bus exploded. Oh, another one. Well, it turns out that they find, and then at some point, like all public transportation in Israel is shut down. I mean, on a Thursday night in Israel is like Friday night in America. It's like end of the work week. Everybody's going out. I mean, to shut down the public transportation in a country of 10 million people, that's a big deal. Well, it turns out that they found out, and also miraculously, bombs set time to go off at 9:00 were planted on 5 different buses around in the Tel Aviv area. Now, mind you, 9:00 appears twice on certain clocks, right? So it was set for PM, not AM. Had it been AM, it probably would have been a lot worse. The other thing is one of the buses that exploded, I think, was like parked, and the driver had just stepped out to eat. And anyway, so like I should have had pictures. Maybe I find pictures for you guys. Yes, I'm going to have to do that because you really should see. Let's see. Let me go to. Right. And so, okay. There's so much news here. We're going to go to the updates. There you go. There's the Bibas kids, Ariel with his little brother, Kfir. By the way, Times of Israel is a good site for Israeli news. They're not shrill, and they really check their sources. These are the 6 hostages that are supposed to be released tomorrow. And this is the bus. That's the bus, guys. Can you believe that? Oh my gosh, I can't even believe it. So anyway, all right, let me see. But you can see, like, these are all the updates from just today. So yeah, that was a pretty serious bus. It would have been a very serious explosion. I mean, they were 5 kilograms each, which is over 10 pounds. And they were planted on 5 buses. Oh, so Tony, tell me about the arrests.
They arrested 2 Israelis. They're suspects of, I think, transportation, bringing these people to, like, their drivers or something like that.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
And I read somewhere that one was Jewish, or have they backtracked? 2 Jewish Israelis.
2 Israelis suspected of involvement in Tel Aviv suburbs.
2 Israelis, but are they Jewish? Because that's a distinction.
Hold on.
Are they like Israeli Arabs? But I had read somewhere that they were. But you have to be so careful with news, and I'm going to tell you about news, like things that came out this week that we still don't even know the answer, because people put things out. Number one, it's fake or not confirmed, and also it's unethical.
The Jerusalem Post reports she better arrest Jewish Israelis who drove terrorists to Bat Yam bombings.
Okay. All right. So the Shin Bet, which is Israel's internal security, arrested 2 Jewish Israelis who drove the bombers, or the people with the bombs, to the buses, and who planted them. So they were 5 bombs on 5 different buses. 3 buses actually did explode, I guess, because I think they were all on a timer. So it was supposed to go off at 9 a.m. today, Friday morning, and Friday's a very busy day. It would have been absolute mayhem in the center of Israel. It was all like in the Tel Aviv area. So, okay, so that's that. And then there is, oh, just so you know, was it 8 months ago, 9 months ago, the head of Hezbollah was killed in Beirut, while in hiding, but Israel somehow figured out where he was, bombed the building, and he was killed. They have not yet had his funeral because they, for then that would expose all the rest of Hezbollah that went to the funeral. But now that the ceasefire has gone on long enough, I guess they feel safe to come out and have the funeral. So Nasrallah's funeral is going to be on Sunday in Beirut. So that's very interesting. I think I read somewhere that Israel has blocked or demanded that Iranian flights cannot land in Beirut or something like that. And this one woman was so upset. She was yelling in the airport, how dare Lebanon bow to the Zionist wishes and stuff like that. Anyway, okay, let's see. What else? There's one more thing. Again, I'm going to tell you the two narratives of one story. In the old city, the Jewish quarter and the Armenian quarter are right next to each other. And actually, a lot of the Armenian quarter now, a lot of Jews live in the residential part of the Armenian quarter. Well, apparently, no, this part's not apparent. This is true. A woman was attacked with an axe as she was entering her house. And so, and was luckily, somehow is still alive and was taken to the hospital. So immediately stories went out, terror attack in the old city on a Jewish woman. And actually you could see in her house, you could see the Jewish, prayer books lined up and everything like that, in the one picture that I saw of the axe. And so it was terror attack and somebody is going to be arrested. The Arabs are now going after Jews in the old city and everything like that. And then the story flips, and it was apparently other people are now saying that it was a Jewish attacker who yelled Christian, Christian, and went after this woman because she's in the Armenian quarter, and you think that Christians live in the Armenian quarter, and he attacked her. So suddenly everybody's backing off that it was a terror attack, but that is kind of still a terror attack, if not very racist. And now I cannot find any conclusion of the story. It's everybody has moved on, and so I don't know the outcome of this. And the police say they're searching for the subject and they're investigating, and there's no conclusion. So I have no answer, but I will say that all of the pro-Israel channels jumped on that and used that as a way to show how evil the Arabs are, that they're attacking this innocent Jewish woman in her home. But none of them corrected it to say that it was probably a case of mistaken identity, and that she was targeted because they thought whoever the attacker was thought she was Christian, which is insane. So, Jacob Persley, hello, Parev, how is Armenia? Okay. Oh, Jacob asks, please comment on the latest update on the Cow's Garden. Armenians here are hearing that it will be seized by the Israeli government. What do you think? Well, that is, seriously, I wanted to do a whole bunch of interviews with not just Armenians, but there's a priest who's very much into property rights and stuff like that. Let me get the statements. You got them?
Well, Times of Israel reported the man arrested in northern Israel on suspicion of committing yesterday's axe attack in Jerusalem.
And what did he say?
What did who say?
Well, what does the article say?
Police arrested a man on suspicion of attacking a woman with a hatchet in her home last night in Jerusalem City. The suspect, who lives in central Israel, arrived at the victim's apartment and lunged at her head with the hatchet, moderately injuring her. He promptly fled the scene on foot and called a cab once he exited the old city. The woman was taken to the hospital. The suspect was arrested in northern Israel and will be transferred back to Jerusalem for questioning.
Is there motive yet?
But they don't say the identity
Right. Okay.
What is he?
So you see, it's
Jewish?
an unclear story, and
Usually when it's unclear,
and
you
is
don't
it
get
terror attack? Did they call it a terror attack? Tony just found the latest article on this, but it's still like
no,
inconclusive.
They
They don't call it a terror attack, which means that it wasn't an Arab.
Of committing, yes, they call it an axe attack.
An axe attack, not a terror attack. If it was a terror attack, it would be okay. All right. So, Jacob, this is just unbelievable. Now, there has been welling in the city lately, in Jerusalem, actually in all of Israel, about the tax exempt status of the churches. That the churches here in Israel and in the West Bank, in all of the Holy Lands, they have land and status. Like, for instance, the land where the Israeli parliament, the Knesset, is Greek church land. And then there's, like, in the Old City, large swaths of it are Armenian church land or Greek Orthodox or different. There's Russian, the Russian Orthodox Church has land, and also outside the Old City.
West
So
Jerusalem. You're talking about West Jerusalem. If you're talking about those lands that there were lately reports about.
it was only West Jerusalem?
It's only West
But I didn't get to it yet. Okay, so suddenly, I think it always comes up that the Israeli government says we're going to charge property taxes on the churches, and then the churches say, "Oh, you can't do that," and then there's like the big brouhaha. It goes back and forth, and then usually Israel drops it. So there was something like that recently, and then suddenly this comes out: urgent communique from the Armenian Patriarch's office. Foreclosure process against properties of the Armenian Patriarch of Jerusalem. There was a hearing for an administrative petition filed by the Armenian Patriarch of Jerusalem set for Monday, coming up Monday. And it was filed as an attempt to stop the foreclosure process against real estate properties that the Patriarch has owned for centuries, so as to collect the municipal tax debts that have allegedly occurred since 1994. If, God forbidding, the Patriarch's petition is denied, the Jerusalem municipality will seize real estate properties belonging to the Patriarchate and put them up for auction in order to collect allegedly disputed debts that have never been proven in judicial proceedings and through customary practices heretofore never have been enforced. So this is just, they would collect it, auction it off. Who would buy it? And then where would the people go who live there or who have shops there? What would happen?
These are properties that are not used.
They are?
They're not used.
It's not like in the Armenian
it's like,
quarter?
No,
it's not the Cow's Garden?
No, this is not the Cow's Garden. They're talking about West Jerusalem, Mamilla area. Those areas Armenians have property.
Like Kadosh.
Like Kadosh or whatever it is, but I guess. Well, if you're renting it from the Patriarchate, you're supposed to be responsible for the Arnona. But I think they're talking about places that are not used and are just sitting there.
Are they? Why not have everything?
They probably are, but this is their opportunity to seize properties like that and just make it their own.
And what would happen out of this? It would establish a dangerous legal precedent that could legitimize the expropriation of property rights and the involuntary liquidation of assets belonging to Christian religious institutions and communities in Israel. This would result in far greater harm to the property owners than the amount of the alleged disputed debts. To the best of our knowledge, the Armenian Patriarch is the only Christian community selected and possibly targeted to face such unprecedented and irreversible measures for the alleged municipal debt. The conduct of the Jerusalem municipality on this matter is specifically inappropriate, as it initiated this aggressive process despite the municipality itself owing the Patriarchate millions of shekels in overdue rental fees. However, the Patriarch has refrained from taking legal action to enforce payment and instead has been engaged in a prolonged negotiation with the municipality. So they wrap it up. This is a clear attempt by the municipality to undermine the Armenian Patriarchate through singling it out, because they didn't do this against the Greeks or the Catholics. through singling out with economic pressure with the aim of diminishing its presence in the Holy Land. Any court judgment regarding the alleged Arnona debt would set a dangerous precedent, extending its applicability to other Christian communities. This could have a profound negative impact on the overall Christian presence in the Holy Land, as well as on the religious, cultural, educational, and ministerial activities of all Christian institutions currently operating in the region. So this is, I mean, we might wonder if this is directly in response to the cow garden, to the patriarch wanting to cancel the deal. If you are familiar with the big property struggle in the Armenian Quarter, where the patriarchate had sold the parking lot and other, parts of the land there in the Armenian Quarter in the Old City to a developer who was going to build a luxury hotel. And anyway, this and then after community pressure and international pressure, reneged on the deal and said he wants to cancel it. And so it's right now in legal proceedings. By the way, that's really shortening a year and a half of also violence and protests and attacks on the Armenian court, physical attacks as well. So the question is, with all of the churches owing property taxes, why did they single out the Armenians? And so it doesn't necessarily have to do directly with the cow's garden. And we also, this statement didn't make it clear which properties that they were talking about. But
West Jerusalem. I think
you say it was, okay. Tony thinks it was West Jerusalem, which wouldn't necessarily include the Old City. Okay, and here's a statement. Let me see if this helps. By the patriarchs and heads of the local churches of Jerusalem.
Maybe you can read this. I think this is good.
We're getting clarification. This is why I was going to do a story on it.
Clarification right there.
Okay. We have received many calls since yesterday regarding this communication. As far as we understand, after communications with Patriarchate, the properties in question are the Patriarchate's properties in West Jerusalem. As of now, this does not in any case directly relate to the Cow's Garden or the convent or any other properties in the Old City. But in any case, we'll keep you posted. Okay. So, but it still could be a direct attack. Okay. So, all the heads of churches have chimed in to show their, to condemn the unjust foreclosure against the Armenian Patriarchate. With great concern, we, the patriarchs and heads of churches in Jerusalem, stand in steadfast solidarity with the Orthodox Armenian Patriarchate in Jerusalem in its pursuit of justice against an unjust foreclosure ordered by the municipality of Jerusalem. The actions taken against the Armenian Patriarch based on an unverified and exorbitant municipal tax debt are legally dubious and morally unacceptable. And they go on to talk about the Christian institution that are in Jerusalem. Their mission for centuries has been to safeguard faith, serve communities, and preserve the sacred heritage of the Holy Land. And so they're saying also particularly alarming is the municipality's attempt to enforce a debt determination without judicial scrutiny and in defiance of the governmental committee established to negotiate such matters. It was just like a clerk just said, you owe this much, don't pay it, you get foreclosed. And that, without any legal, there was it wasn't a court thing, it wasn't legal. Anyway, so, okay. So that's that. So we don't know 100%. We don't know everything about that. We don't know. It's not directly related to the Cow's Garden, but in terms of area, but it could be in terms of revenge or, to get back. So, okay. I have some questions here. Is there any hope that Shiri is alive? And then it says here that all right, I don't know if any of this is verified. I don't know I don't think anybody here is hoping that Shiri is alive. Just in response to that question, Shiri Bibas, going back to the original story. But again, it's not all known at this point. So So that's that. So we're waiting for, like, let's see if the release goes forward. It'll be about like 15 hours from now that the whole shenanigans will start again. I was going to tell you a little bit about the Hamas ceremony in releasing the bodies of the hostages. Now, if you have been watching my lives, the few that weren't taken down or whatever, you would have seen, like, and I can also post pictures and stuff like that of. I'll post some pictures of the backdrops and the stage and the ceremony that Hamas has very cynically produced every week. And I mean, really, they go to great lengths to produce. Like they print new backdrops. They have like a new messaging campaign every hostage release. Like some directing at President Trump, some directing at Netanyahu, and but this one was not was still, yes, they still had like the backdrop, but it was just a little bit different. But I will tell you, for the Israeli media, first of all, they refused to rebroadcast it, whereas all the previous hostage releases, they showed the scenes from Gaza. They, funneled them through like the press agencies that are in Gaza, and they were live streaming from there. So the Israeli media also was showing that, like, all of Israel that wasn't observing Shabbat was glued to the TV watching. So Israel decided, the Israeli media decided, we're not going to do that because of respect for the privacy of those who will be getting back dead bodies. So that left us all to turn to other channels and to go watch it there. So I did watch it. And it's a lot of what I talk about on the CBN interview. So you can check that out. I will remember to put that in the link, I hope, or put the link in the comments. And you could see that the backdrop, first of all, was unbelievable. I wish I had a picture right now. They had a silhouette of Sinwar, who is the former leader of Hamas, the leader of Hamas that was killed in Gaza a couple months ago. And his legs were like these tree, what's the word? Not branches. I said it wrong in the interview, but like tree trunks that went into the ground, and the roots were like a very deep and complex root system, which I think was symbolic of, like, we're staying here. You're not kicking us out. This is our land. So that was one message. They also had a picture of Prime Minister Netanyahu, like a vampire. And the what do you call it? The 4 hostages that were supposedly being released then, pictures of them. And then they set up the stage and they put the 4 coffins, black coffins, on the stage. And on each one, there was a name and a picture. I think it was in Arabic and Hebrew. I'm not sure if it was also in English. One of the things that I've noted in all of their banners and publications, that they're putting everything out in 3 languages, in Arabic, Hebrew, and English. So the messages go, for themselves in Arabic, they, to the Israelis in Hebrew, and to the rest of the world in English. So at least on the coffins, they had a picture of the person. At least it was in Hebrew and Arabic, but I don't know. I don't remember seeing English. And then after they had I couldn't hear everything. The one I was listening to, there was a reporter talking the whole time, so I couldn't really hear the backdrop of what was happening. But apparently there was music and a lot of cheering. And of course, you have to understand as well that this cheering and everything is, you also, like, the people of Gaza are also subject to, and maybe also held captive by Hamas. I mean, some do support Hamas and some don't, but sometimes you can't necessarily you can't necessarily judge all of Gaza by Hamas, because they also are living in an Iranian style dictatorship there. So So anyway, it's this really dark display of celebrating that they have killed these people. And then they brought the coffins. They were held by 4 people each, and they each had different color headbands, probably signifying different groups like Hamas and others, Islamic Jihad and 2 others. And then they would carry the coffins individually to a waiting Red Cross vehicle. And they put them on a stand, like right outside the vehicle. And they had like a white curtain there. I don't understand why. And then from there, they would put the coffin in the back of the Red Cross vehicle. And they did that 4 times. And then the vehicles headed toward Israel. One of the things Israel did different, the broadcast on the Israeli side started once the bodies got into Israeli territory, and they followed the route, they were driven to the forensic center rather than flown by helicopter. All the other hostages that arrived living are they were flown, and tomorrow will be flown by helicopter to different hospitals, but they drove this time. And then everybody waited basically to find out what the results would be. And we woke up to the news that 3 of the bodies were identified. Oded Lifshitz, who was 84, or would have been 84. He was kidnapped when he was 83. And Ariel Bibas, who would be 5 now, and Kfir Bibas, who I think, he was 10. He was 9 months old when he was kidnapped. So we woke up to the news that those 3 had been identified. And then we found out that the 4th body has not been identified, was not Shiri Bibas, the mother, and it's an unknown woman, and it's not a hostage, not another Israeli hostage. So they have no idea. And by the way, Hamas wants the body back, And then a couple hours later, we heard the news that the Bibas boys were murdered in cold blood with bare hands. And so the reeling of the nation that started yesterday has only actually continued. Like, it was bad enough that they were coming back in coffins, let alone then to find out the cruelty by which they were treated, which is also shocking, to see that there are hostages that have walked out alive. They have been generally healthy. Not that it was, vacation being in captivity, but they're going to survive. So why were the youngest ones killed? Like, not, even shot, but killed. Like, yeah, that's so. Anyway, there's going to be a lot of reactions to that over the coming days. One of the Bibas family members has called for the hostage releases to continue, to say this is not the time for revenge, because we have to get people, including the real body of Shiri, out alive. And then also the other hostage, Oded Lifshitz, the forensic report does say that he was murdered, but did not elaborate as to how. Apparently he was kidnapped, injured. He was shot in the hand and was bleeding. But there's nothing conclusive on that, about no details. So anyway, that's that. I don't know if you guys have any more questions. There's more to Tony's got. I don't know if they can hear you, so you're gonna have to come closer.
I can tell you. You can tell them.
Okay, but I just want to say hi. Oh my gosh, snowy New York near Lake Ontario. You guys have snow. That's not probably unusual, but we're supposed to get snow, which is unusual, but it's probably not really going to happen. All right, Tony's got an update. Go ahead.
The axe attack.
The axe attack.
You're saying it is a Jewish man.
Jewish man
that attacked what he thought was a Christian woman.
Attacked what he thought was a Christian woman,
but was
a Jewish woman. And is that confirmed? And is that the latest? And is that
on the J Post as well?
On the J Post? Okay, if it's on the J Post, they would have done their due diligence, most likely. I want to just tell you guys, there's as somebody who studied journalism, please, please be careful where you get your news. When people tell me that they get their news from their favorite so-and-so on Telegram, I cringe in all sorts of ways, because I really, what you're getting is opinion, headlines, and zero context. You are not getting news. You're not getting anything verified. You're getting agenda. And what the worst part is that sometimes what you're not getting is more important than what you are getting, because what you're not getting is, if it's being purposely hidden, could give you a bigger picture, or the big picture of a particular story. So for instance, especially with these irresponsible so-called no, not reported, influencers on social media that put up the story because it fits their narrative that that a terrorist attacked a Jewish woman in the old city. Totally fits their narrative. The Arabs are evil. Oh my gosh, everything is so bad, Jacob. I will not admit. But, and he's not the only one that did that. They put this out because it suits their narrative, and then they don't correct it later. And that is just like, it's beyond wrong. I mean, how can we trust truth? How can we? You have to be able to find truth, to prove truth, to rely on the word of somebody. And also, so it's the stuff that they don't tell you, and it's the stuff that they do tell you and how they tell you, because it suits their agenda, and then they don't correct it. And it's just a disaster. It's what has created the polarization of reporting these days, where it's like, you watch like Piers Morgan, for instance, and you've got the two pro-Israel, and then you got the two pro-Palestinian, and they just are fighting, and they're just saying their sound bites, and you're like, oh, that's a good point. Oh, that's a good point. Oh, that's, and it's just, there's no critical thinking, and there's no follow-up, and we're all being done a disservice. So as far as so many of the influencers who put out their headlines and the stuff that suits their narratives, they have not been trained in journalism. And I'm not saying that all journalists are wonderful, angelic people, but you were taught that you have a responsibility and accountability. And also, that brings me to another topic. Speaking of these influencers or people who are in the know or like to show that they're in the know, I always like to say it's better to be right than to be first. So what if everybody hears from you first? But if you're right, people can trust you. Unfortunately, things are moving too fast, and people don't care about that now. They want it fast. But do you know that the Israeli media and reporters that report in Israel are subject to a censor? And there's a reason for that, obviously. Yeah, people can say, oh, it means it's not a democratic media or whatever. But there are ways to bypass the censor. Like, for instance, the story will be leaked to a foreign newspaper like the New York Times or the Times of London or something like that. Like, they'll get the story, and then the Israeli media will report the New York Times reported that an Israeli source said blah, blah, blah. And that's how the news can get out, like with the bypass of the censor. But there's a reason for the censor. And I saw it so many times in the last couple of days, especially with the Bibas family, that people who like to show off that they're in the know and that they heard the information, they said, oh yeah, it's the Bibas, and yeah, this is how they're definitely dead, and this is how they were killed. Meanwhile, you had the husband, who was just released from captivity 3 weeks ago, say, please, everybody stop, let us wait. Don't start eulogizing my family until I have any official word. I want my 2 more days of hope. But you had people putting out this news, and because they're not actually journalists, they're not subject to the censor. So the Israeli media is not reporting it, but all the channels, all these little channels that are irresponsible and unaccountable to anyone, are putting it out. And it just bothers me so much. I think it really just blows apart the responsibility that you're supposed to have as a journalist, but also it's just irresponsible to the truth. And we are losing truth these days. It's like slipping through our fingers. So anyway, that was my soapbox. Thank you for joining. I think I'm going to wrap it up. It was great. I'm so happy you guys joined. And thank you for saying hi from where you are. I will go put some stuff in the comments now, in the links in the comments. Tomorrow morning, I can't say whether I will be doing a live during the hostage release, but I have managed to do that almost every time. I think I missed last week, something. Anyway, so if you want to join, get the notifications on YouTube that I'm going live. I don't know how it works on Facebook, but I'll also, I'll be dual streaming YouTube and Facebook, and apparently Rumble, though I need to go open up and see if it's actually working. So anyway, thank you very much for joining in, and I will see you again.